This is me in my third ever race meeting in my brand new stock car. And this is the world champion quite literally up my arse. Hello and welcome back to Cornish Boy Tries to be Lewis Hamilton. Last time I began my stock car career by buying, building and racing a new car, ending my debut with a win and a handful of mechanical problems. But today you join me as I undertake 5 more race meetings, including both the national and British championship. Was last time just beginner's luck? Today we find out, as we see how I perform as I face extreme weather, compete against the country's best and demonstrate the true essence of non-contact racing. But first, you join me at a very rainy Taunton. The weather couldn't have been much worse for my first time back at the track since 2016. However, I wasn't going to let that stop me. Quick reminder for those that are new here about how this series works. The stock rods are a non-contact oval racing formula which sees 1400cc, mainly front-wheel drive cars, go around in circles for 20 laps, all in the name of sport. There's 3 races per meeting, and the grid is set in a roof grade system, with the newest / slowest drivers being white roofs who start at the front, then followed by yellows, then blues, then reds, then champions. Since this was only going to be my second ever meeting in the formula, I'm starting off white, and my dad, who's been racing for years, is starting off the back of the reds. That should be everything you need to know for now. So how about we stop waffling and get into the first race, shall we? Heat 1 started out well for me as I managed to clear the fellow white roof and began pulling a gap on the rest of the field. Before then, a yellow flag swiftly put an end to that, bunching up the pack behind me and leaving me to try and hold on with the top drivers breathing down my neck. P5 wasn't that bad, and in the interest of sparing you some time, Heat 2 ended up being more of the same, as I did my best to pull away out front before the quicker cars then caught me. I did my best to hold on as the pack approached, but reality soon hit me and said,
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
So I ended up 10th. But there was still the final to go. I'd shown some alright speed so far, so could I pull something out the bag here? Let's find out. 313 had got me off the line, but after a few laps of hounding him, he finally ran wide and I was able to slip up the inside. We stayed neck and neck for a little while until I eventually cleared him, and by this point the entire field was basically a big train, so it was very much. By half distance, I had a new challenger, with Liam Shipway in the 311 trying around the outside, with the rest of the drivers right on our arses. All I could do at this point was just stay in tight and hold on. Well, that went well, lads. If you couldn't tell what happened here, let me explain. Basically, in trying to hug the curb as tight as possible, I've clipped it slightly, which has then sent me into shipway. My tyre then hits his arch and it goes kaboom. It was a shame to end the day that way, especially when you consider a decent result was definitely on the cards for the final. But that's racing. And this shredded tyre will now serve as a reminder to use my bloody brain when I'm on track. But yeah, overall, it was a good showing from Corey in the wet. No issues with the engine or anything like that, so thank you, Corey. I really appreciate it. It's nice that you let me make the mistakes this time instead of the engine causing issues. But there was no need to linger on what could have been, since we still had 4 more meetings coming up to get redemption, and the next of those was the National Championship. Yet, before we went racing again, we had some work to do, as not only were we down a brand new tyre, but Corey was also in need of some TLC. But first, let me introduce you to our crack team of mechanics and race drivers that we had in our corner. This ginger man is Callum, the current points leader, Irish Open champion, and CEO of Sending It a Bit Too Hard. This ape is my dad, 2017 points champion, lead sponsor for my car, and the cleanest racing driver in the world.
I see fucking mates, mate! Fucking off at you! Tell them to your fucking friends!
Between the 3 of us, we spent hours in the garage, getting the 2 championship contending cars and mine ready for race day. Also, with me living in Manchester, it meant that I wasn't always there to help them with the car, and thus the 2 decided to give me a nice new nickname and stick it on the inside of my car. Now, you'd think after this funny joke I'd go, haha, nice one lads, and remove it, wouldn't you? However, I couldn't, because when I tried, the paint came with it, and I couldn't be asked to paint the car again, so it's going to stay there for the foreseeable. So on championships, the format's a little bit different. Instead of using the roof grade system, you start your first heat in a random order, which is then flipped around for the second heat. The grid for the final is then set from the points you score in those 2 heats, with the person who scored the most points throughout the day starting on pole, and the person who's had the biggest stinker starting last. For heat 1, I was starting 9th with my dad and the world champion right behind me. What could go wrong? Wrote for Heat 1, lads, as I then just sat at the back of the pack following the train until the checkered flag. However, after my god tier Latifi level performance in Heat 1, Mother Nature decided to spice things up a little bit and throw a cheeky bit of drizzle into the equation. For the next heat, I was starting P6, but was on the outside line, which isn't really the best place to be in oval racing, lads, especially not in the kind of wet weather, because everyone just sort of trains out of your inside and you're left on the outside like a lemon. I did my best to stay with the pack and was desperately trying to tuck in where I could, but I was simply stuck on the outside line, and by the time I could get in, I was once again at the back. The following 12 laps were then the most depressing yet, as I struggled to find grip, pace and talent, with the main pack leaving me on my own to finish a lap down once again. It's pretty safe to say, I was getting my arse handed to me, lads. Meanwhile though, my dad was having the time of his life. Absolutely flying out there despite his bonnet trying to socially distance itself from the car, grabbing a P3 and a win in his heat races, meaning that now he lined up on pole for the National Championship final. Where did I start? But forget about me, this race was all about Dad. Despite him racing for so many years in the stock rod category, my dad has still never won a major championship. And now this was his best shot of doing so. And lining up alongside him on the front row was our friend Callum. It was by no means a 2-horse race between them, but with me, the only guy out there to have beaten my dad in the go-kart, starting P19, Ginge was probably the only one out there that could stop him. As we came into the closing laps of the race, Callum was still up front maintaining a gap over my dad. However lads, the race was not over yet, as when the two began to lap me, I could finally get a little bit involved. Now, would I intentionally take out a friend of mine who actually sponsored my own car in order for my dad to win a championship? No! Obviously not!
Cleared by Legato, maybe no!
Jokes aside though, the speed differential by the time he actually caught me was such that it meant any efforts I had to try and be slightly awkward ended up looking like that video of the security guard on the 12th hour of his shift. And thus, Callum came round to take the W, with my dad finishing second. Where was I?
My disappointment is immeasurable. And my day is ruined.
And just like that, the racing was over. I wouldn't say it was a shit day, it was just a little bit disheartening. Obviously, most of the other cars were going to be quicker than me. This was only my third ever race meeting in a stock rod. But after the few high points of the first two meetings, this felt awful. 0 points scored, 0 talent displayed, multiple dead trims captured. But not to worry, lads, as we're doing it all over again tomorrow for the British Championship. However, before that, it was straight back to the garage for the nation's first, second and 13th best driver, as we had to fix up, tune up and wise up before once more loading up the cars ready to hit the track again tomorrow. But we wouldn't be racing on the same track, lads. Oh no. As for the British Championship, we were heading back to... For a change, it seemed like the weather gods had finally blessed us with some nice weather, and since I'd not driven this track in the dry since I looked like this, practice was crucial, since I'd have to get myself and the car proper dialed in if I wanted any chance of beating the 21 other drivers. Oh. Make that 20. The race format was going to be the same as the day before, and after pulling my grid slot, it turned out I'd be starting heat 1 from the back. On the bright side though, lads, I can't finish any lower. things considered, I don't think I could have asked for much more from that one. I made up a good few positions, held my own against some faster drivers, can't complain. And anyway, it was Heat 2 that really mattered, lads. Since with me starting off the back last time, it meant that I started Heat 2 on pole, with all the top drivers, champions, and of course the donkeys, all starting right behind me. Now for my own safety, I'm not going to specify who the donkeys out there are, other than the fact that one of them is looking at you right now. At this point, I was sitting comfy in third. I had a nice gap to the cars behind, and the two up front were pretty much in their own postcode by now. But there was still some hope, lads, as Callum in P2 still had one major blockade in his way: his inability to settle for second place.
If you ain't first, you're last.
With the poor ginger bastard now parked on the infield, all I had to do was hold off a charging points champion behind me for a few more corners to secure a tasty P2. And with this decent result, it had me lining up in P8 for the British Championship final, ahead of both my dad and Callum. Ignore the fact that one's had 2 DNFs and the other one's in his 40s, lads. This is still a victory in my books. But could I stay there? No, probably not. But I was gonna give it my best shot. And that was that. After a fun race-long battle with the 862 and 728, we managed to hold on and secure P11 in the final, which is not bad. We've got P2 in Heat 2, and I think we've got P11 in Race 1 as well.
Lovely.
Nice. And with that, my first championship doubleheader was over. The British was definitely much more successful than the National, as I managed to actually hold my own with the much more experienced drivers, which really helped my confidence at this point. And I didn't even get lapped in the final. Just about. I mean, here's me crossing the line, and then here's the winner. So, I mean, 2 more laps and I would have been 3 meetings done, 2 to go. The championship formats may not have favoured me and my chances of getting a second win, but my luck may be about to change for the next one, as we go back to the regular roof grade starting format. However, thanks to my performances in the last few meetings, I'd now been moved up to a yellow roof, meaning that if I wanted to get another W, I was going to have to work a little bit harder. With this new roof grade though, came a new roof colour. So we put our 3 brain cells to work, applying a big lovely yellow vinyl to my roof, which, as you can imagine, looked fantastic when it was done. If you squint, she's mint. After some more long nights of prep, it was finally race day. And as usual, lads, we were running very late. So after getting ready in the back of the van on the way to the track, it was straight out to practice. Mother Nature had decided that sporadic rain would make for the best entertainment. And so when it came time for race 1, it was pretty much a gamble when it came to the setup. Do you go for the dry setup, for the wet setup, somewhere in between? And if you are going between, how far between are you going? Basically, it was gonna be carnage. As I headed out onto the track, the rain continued to fall. And it seemed like my choice of a mildly moist setup may have been the right call. And as I lined up in my new grid slot on the exit of turn 4, I was back alongside James, who, if you remember from my last racing video, took my chance at a second win away in the dying laps after I cooked my tyres like an idiot. But today, I wasn't going to let that happen. And with me starting on the outside, it was crucial that I got away well, cleared him off the line, and didn't waste any time battling. But again, that's easier said than done. The race for me started off perfectly, and as the laps went on, I started to pull a huge gap on the cars behind, and I even began catching up and lapping the rest of the field. Now either a lot of people have got the setup wrong, or I was driving like a Primer and Senna. I'll let you lot be the judge of that one. With 3 laps to go, I was really amongst it with the back markers. I was definitely quicker, but I didn't want to take any stupid risks this late into the race. Yet at the same time, I couldn't afford to sit behind them, as P2 was closing in. That's Callum in P2, by the way. He was in one of our friends' cars for this meeting instead of his own, hence the lack of pink. So, let's break down what's just happened here, shall we? So as we came round to start the final lap, I made a move to the outside of 204 down the main straight. However, she didn't see me do this, and thus approaching turn 1, she moves over into what she believes to be clear air, but instead finds my front end. Callum then takes this opportunity to shoot at my inside and steal the victory on the final lap. Now obviously, looking back, there's a number of things I could have done differently here, like staying tucked in behind these back markers and just defending, avoiding hovering in a driver's blind spot when trying to overtake, and obviously when she started spinning, I could have let off the throttle. But I mean, at that point, I was clearly lost in the moment, everything was going wrong, I was about to lose the lead, and thus the foot stayed firmly planted to the floor. Apologies, Georgie, obviously wasn't intentional, probably just my inexperience in racecraft showing off there, but I mean, I paid the price for it in the end, so. But lads, I have a confession. With all this drama going on, I may have lost count of the laps a little bit, and thus when we crossed the line to finish the race, I still thought it was 1 lap to go. So I absolutely send it into turn 1, and Callum obviously doesn't. I hit him up the boot lid, he isn't best pleased. What a bloody shit show. After a quick kiss and make up out with Callum in the pit lane and a quick refresher on how to camp the 20, it was then time for race 2, where the mindset was quite simple. Oh well, just gotta go win this one now, aren't I?
Ooh, you're hard showing off.
Heat number 2 was much less dramatic than race 1, as once I passed Sophie for the lead, it was pretty much just a case of keeping out of the wall and bringing it home, which obviously sounds simple enough. However, in these changeable, half wet, half dry conditions, there's still every chance that something terrible could happen. I mean, we've seen my driving, lads, nothing's a given. However, I managed to find just enough talent to hold on and bring it home safely, taking the second win of my stock rod career. And just let it be known for the record, by the way, lads, that my dad's only had 1 win this year, right? So that's me doubled his tally. I don't care that he starts off the back, lads, it's not relevant information. Speaking of my dad though, as I got back to the pits, it became clear that in his mind, the race almost ended very differently. I thought you were second. Oh yeah, Dad, you're right on my bumper there, mate. My helmet's f***ing hanging.
You're f***ing hanging, so you're welcome.
So it was now time for the final. And lads, I can't lie to you, I was keen to make up for that tsunami-struck final from a few weeks before. Now, the final in stock car racing is basically the same as a normal race. However, the main difference is the trophies are much, much bigger. And as we all know, lads, trophies are everything. Why do you think I've done all these running events in the past? Do you really think I'd voluntarily run a marathon if there wasn't a medal at the end of it? Went on, I continued to hold off the 149 whilst closing in on the leader. Now, this girl in front of me here is Sophie. She's been racing stock rods for 5+ years, and before that, she raced back in the day with me in the mini stocks. And lads, she's never had a win. But right now, she's sitting comfy in the lead. With a decent amount of speed, lads, I can't lie. And with the conditions only providing us drivers with one real racing line, and a queue of multiple cars behind me as well, the only real thing I can do to try and stop her taking her first W right now is to hang in her mirrors and attempt to force a little mistake. I wasn't about to make the same mistake I made last time. As when trying to defend against James in my first race meeting, I was sending it into the corners flat out in an attempt to pull away. However, this time the tactic was simple. Keep it tight, keep it clean, and don't, for the love of God, bottle it. Win number 3 of the season. For those keeping track, that's now 3 times my dad's annual tally. This day of racing is just what I needed after a rough few meetings beforehand, and bar my brain fart in race 1, there's not really that much I'd change or do differently, and thus I could go home that day with a smile on my face and 2 new trophies to add to the shelf.
Just showing off now, isn't it?
But boys and girls, it's not over yet, as I still have 1 final race meeting left this season, and it was going to be my toughest yet, since my good results at Sunday now meant that I've been moved immediately up to the blue roofs.
Why did you do that?
Funny. Now, the blue grade is pretty much agreed to be the worst out of all of them, since it's usually got the most drivers, and there's a real mix of, you know, the veterans who are having a bit of bad luck, the more experienced drivers who aren't quite at that top level yet, and of course the donkeys like myself. But before I go to war, we have some prep to do, and as always, we're running late, lads. Like, very, very, very late. So, lads, the race is tomorrow evening, yeah? And the car currently has no engine, no exhaust, no suspension. The roof needs a new vinyl. Wheels and tyres need to be sorted. The gearing needs to be changed. And all the bodywork needs to be beaten out and straightened back up. We gotta get a move on. If you're wondering why there was so much to do before this race, well, it's because between meetings, Dad, Callum and the other top stock rod drivers all travelled to Ireland for the World Championship. He took a bunch of spares off my car to go with him, including the engine, and thus now we have to rush to put them all back in time for race day. If you're wondering how Dad got on in the World Final though, it started off really well with him qualifying P7 out of everyone. However, as he came round to start the first lap of the big final race...
So the car go up in smoke. A lot of smoke there, getting very sideways. I think it's going to put a lot of oil on the track. That's Simon Vincent.
Good morning, boys and girls. It's race day. We're heading down to the garage now because the car still isn't done. It's getting there, but it's not quite finished yet. However, thankfully it's a night race today, so we have a bit of time. Yeah, that being said, we need to get our toe down, lads. We eventually finished off the cars, gave them a very brief clean, and then hit the road. And despite having to finish off our tasks at a very, very, very moist track, we were pretty much ready. As usual, it's bloody manic right now. I've had one practice so far. The track was really slippery. There's no grip. Might be setup, might be driver, might be a bit of both. But we're going to see how race one goes now, lads. So wish me luck on this very, very moist day. Now, as I lined up for Heat 1, it was very clear that I wasn't going to be replicating my same success from last time out, as I was now starting all the way back here instead of here. Let's see what we can do, lads. As the race went on, I kept a decent pace. However, slowly but surely got caught and passed by the red roofs and a few blues. It wasn't necessarily a great result, but I mean, I was just happy to see I didn't get dropped immediately by the other blue roofs. Good fun, that. Wet, slippery, good fun. Heat 2 was more of the same, as I did my best to hold on as the faster cars caught up and passed me. But for the final, lads, I was keen to change that. As for me, it would be my final race of the year. It had been a wild ride up to now with some crazy highs and lows. And since I wasn't too sure what the future held racing-wise going forward, I really wanted to end this crazy mega journey strong, lads. And to do that, I had to shut out all the distractions, all the doubts, and just focus. For fuck's sake.
Let the sky fall when it crumbles. We will stand tall, face it all together. Let the sky fall when it crumbles. We will stand tall, face it all together.
Someone can make that sing, you can read all about it. Sandy, UK don't know what I'm doing. They say Sanjay got a regular family. Airbnb turned out to a bando. This ain't no regular trap. Can't help with a hard drive plugged in a laptop. This ain't no regular man. Thank God every day for our freedom. Once time goes, we ain't getting that back. Driver knows the protocol. You see blue lights got stuck on the gas. Airbnb turned out to a bando. This ain't no regular trap. Can't help with a hard drive plugged in a laptop. This ain't no regular.
Halfway, I sat at the front of the pack, with the top blue graders, red roofs and champions all on my tail. However, unlike before where they all just blew past me, this time I made sure to hold my line and make them work if they wanted to escape the Corey Conga. I also at this point had very, very bad tyres on, meaning I had very minimal grip in and out of the corners, so I had to brake and go really, really steady to keep it in tight, thus backing everyone up even more and causing some more carnage. Basically, I had to defend for my life, lads. As you can see, things were getting choppy out there, with an accordion of bumper bashing behind, resulting in some top tier, god level non-contact racing. However lads, I was just about for the most part holding on, and going into the final stages of this race, that's all I needed to continue doing. Because even though I wasn't at the front challenging for the win, I still wanted to prove to myself and everyone else that I had what it takes, and that when it comes down to it, I can really mess around and race with the big boys. That sounds really dodgy, you know. In any other context, if I was saying I wanted to mess around with big boys, yeah, that'd be a little bit suspect, lads.
The 2023 season of stock rod racing.
Despite it not ending with any more silverware to my name, I was happy. Not only did I hold my own in a pack of top drivers, but I bloody enjoyed it, lads. Especially all the bumping that was going on in this non-contact formula. I actually find it quite fun. And thus, as we loaded up for the final time that year, I once again had a smile on my face. And I'll be honest, lads, I feel like I redeemed myself at least a little bit from my mediocre oval racing career in my teenage years. And yeah, I'll be honest, lads, racing this season has been a dream. I never thought I'd ever be racing again, so to actually have done a part-time season this year, win my debut race, finish 2 championship finals, and get to Blue Roof, it's been mega, honestly. As for next year, lads, let's do it all over again. But this time, let's try and do a full season. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be cheap, so I am looking for sponsors, lads. So if you have a brand, a business, or even just want to slap your name on the car somewhere, reach out to me in any of my social medias that are on screen now, or over email, and let's bloody do it, lads. Thanks again to everyone who's made this season possible. Mum, Dad, Callum, Amber, everyone else. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe. And if you missed the first racing video I did, you can click here to watch that now. Or if you want to watch a different video from me, you can click here, and there'll be one on screen. Click it, lads. I'm really good at making videos, I promise. They're both very good. Come on, click it. Click it.